What's going on, YouTube? You got Bacon here bringing you another video. This one gonna be my week 4 battle for the ABC. This week we're going up against the Dakota Mews, coached by S1W4, who here into the match will be called Swede for conciseness purposes. Swede's got a really threatening team, a lot of really heavy potential wall breakers. First thing right off the bat, Kyurem-Black. See Kyurem-Black, a lot of bells and whistles ought to go off in your head that your opponent has it, because it's probably the most potent wall breaker in the format, and it is paired with ICMZ on this team, so huge threat right off the bat. Kyurem-Black also got Jirachi, Salamence, Entei, Nidoking, Primarina, Galvantula, Umbreon, Blastoise, Mega Blastoise rather, Delmise, Whimsicott, Chinchino, and ICMZ. So like I mentioned, really a potent wall breaking team with, of course, the webs potential with Galvantula. I wasn't sure if he'd bring webs versus me this game, just because I've got a lot of the team that's either floating or like doesn't really care too much about them. Things like Reuniclus and Scizor really don't care about being slowed down too much. Got like the Swellow, Rotom Wash, Gliscor, so I've got good defogging options. So I feel like webs were kind of a maybe bring versus me. But some of the other stuff, if he did bring webs, it basically just meant some of the other kind of more threatening stuff got left off. Speaking of which, just gonna go through my team really quickly. Right up front there, I've got Rivali Sucks coming to its first game. Choice Spec Swellow with Boom Burst, Heat Wave, U-Turn, and Air Slash, I believe, on this set. Basically going to spam Boom Burst for the most part, with the exception of maybe the Jirachi. I'll have to click Heat Wave versus that. Air Slash, not too useful in this matchup, but just kind of an extra thing to have there in case I needed to get flinches or whatever. Would have hit the Whimsicott pretty well, I guess, and of course the Delmise. But in general, Boom Burst is just a lot more spammable and does good damage. Next up, we got SCB, the Dragalge, also making its first appearance of the season. We got Toxic Spikes, Dragon Pulse, Shadow Ball, and Sludge Wave. Shadow Ball basically to predict the obvious switching into Jirachi, even though it doesn't do too much. Getting chip off on that thing is going to be really valuable, especially because I'm anticipating a Choice Scarf Jirachi this match. Otherwise, it wouldn't outspeed things like my Infernape, which has kind of been a big threat for my team early in the game here. But the T-Spikes are really nice for his team. You can see a lot of grounded Mons on that squad, especially his spinners. Didn't end up bringing the Nidoking in this matchup, which means once I get up a T-Spike, it's there to stay until it's been Rapid Spin, so guaranteeing a poison on something is basically the idea. So T-Spike's really nice in this matchup. Felt like they were pretty valuable. And Dragalge offers me a kind of nice Spadef switch into Primarina, Blastoise, things like that. And it can take hits from Entei if need be. Not the primary switch into Entei, of course, but definitely potential to take a hit from Entei and fire back a strong Sludge Wave. Next up, we got a really important member of the team here, Rotom Wash, Will-O-Wisp, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, and Defog. Pretty much max speed to outspeed the Nidoking with max HP, and an Papa Berry. No, Wiki Berry. Does the same thing. 50% health berry. Basically, if I switch in on like a Choice Specs Primarina Moonblast, it has a pretty good chance to proc my berry if I've taken a little bit of previous damage, or if their stealth rocks up or something like that. And of course I can threaten that thing with a Volt Switch while still being at a pretty good amount of health. Kind of the same goes for the Blastoise there, and it's a generally good switch into things like Entei over the course of the game. I'm expecting that Kyurem-Black to be carrying Earth Power, which is kind of scary, but that also would get me into berry range if I were to Volt Switch out on that or something like that. But yeah, Rotom Wash, just really good defensive pivot this game, Volt switching around. Of course, like I mentioned, didn't end up bringing the Nidoking, so no ground type on that side. Really nice to see, so I can pretty freely click Volt Switch this match on predicted switches out of things like Entei or Jirachi into other Mons. Next up, we got Tyranitar, yet again carrying Stealth Rocks. Really just couldn't find a better Stealth Rocker this week, and Tyranitar just doing the job once again. Stealth Rock, Crunch, Earthquake, and I believe I did fit Stone Edge on this set. I considered running Pursuit, but I really didn't want to end up staying in on like Jirachi anyways, because U-Turn's still going to do a decent chip damage to me, and if he decides to stay in an Iron Head and try to get the flinches, he will. Not quite 2-hit KO me, but I don't really want to be taking that kind of damage on my Tyranitar, especially because I can live at full, or even a little bit less than full. I can live an ICMZ free shock from the Kyurem-Black, and of course whack that thing with a Stone Edge. Next up, we got Not Choice Scarf Infernape. 2 weeks in a row, Not Choice Scarf Infernape. Woohoo! We got Life Orb Infernape here with Close Combat, Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, and Mach Punch. Mach Punch kind of not being as useful as I might have hoped this matchup. It was mostly to catch things like Choice Scarf, Kyurem-Black, and things like that, which still would have had potential this match, and things like Entei, I guess, so it won't be able to bulldoze me if it's Choice Scarf for some reason. But mostly I'm just going to be clicking close combat this match. Thunder Punch is nice for things like the Primarina. It's a roll to OHKO it from full if he's no bulk. I do expect a kind of bulkier variant of Primarina, regardless of whether it's Specs or AV or anything like that. But Thunder Punch being really nice to put in huge damage on that thing. And of course, close combat, it's pretty spammable versus the team against things that aren't Delmais. Basically, this is my offensive Kyurem-Black check. If Kyurem-Black kills something, which, you know, it's kind of hard to stop Kyurem-Black from doing, we can bring in Infernape and just fire off a real strong close combat, which should be really nice for me. He really doesn't have good switch-ins to close combat. Close combat into Thunder Punch will KO Primarina. Obviously, he doesn't want to risk a potential fire move on things like Jirachi and Delmais. So basically, just gonna bust some holes in his team with this Life Orb Infernape here. Oh, excuse me, it wasn't Mach Punch, it was HP Ice. HP Ice on Infernape to prevent Salamence from setting up on me. HP Ice after rocks would KO the Salamence, because I am naive, I believe. I believe I went with naive to avoid the extreme speed doing extra damage from Entei. And things like Choice Scarf for Jirachi from doing extra damage to me. So yeah, HP Ice, not Mach Punch on that Infernape there. Last member of the team, this was originally Akaberry Scizor, but this time dedicated Zakmon coming in with the Rocky Helmet. After a brief play testing, I decided Rocky Helmet was a lot better to get chip on specifically the Jirachi. Like I mentioned, I am expecting a Choice Scarf Jirachi this week, and if he locks himself into Iron Head or Zen Headbutt or something like that, obviously I can take the hits really well, and if he's just U-turning out on things like my Tyranitar, I might not want to stay in on it, or for example my Rotom Wash, I can take those Rocky Helmet hits and really tip that thing over the course of the match to put it in range of something late game. Obviously, I don't want Rotom Wash also to be kind of having to take all these hits from Jirachi over the course of the match, since it already kind of has to deal with Entei and a little bit Primarina and Blastoise, so I didn't want to overload Rotom this game. So Scizor kind of taking the burden at least of the Jirachi off his back is pretty nice. I've got Bullet Punch, Knockoff, U-Turn, and Roost on this set. Knockoff really nice for predicted Entei switching. I can knock off a Choice Band or something like that. Bullet Punch, of course, being great for the Kyurem-Black, and U-Turn just being good for momentum. Roost in case I can come in on like a Psychic or a Steel move from the Jirachi and just get a free Roost off in the middle of the game. Obviously, the Rocky Helmet being really nice to continuously wear that thing down over the course of the match. I'm not sure if he'd carry Fire Punch versus me. He's got Fire Punch. He doesn't have Ice Punch for like my Gliscor. I definitely expect him to have a Psychic move and a Steel move to hit my Tyranitar and my Infernape respectively, or flip that, whatever. Yeah, I definitely expect the Steel move, the Psychic move, probably U-turn for momentum, and it's either Fire Punch or Ice Punch. I'm not really sure which one it's going to be, but that's definitely something to keep in mind throughout the course of the match. So looking at team preview, like I mentioned, no webs this match. He brought the Kyurem-Black, Entei, Jirachi, Primarina, Blastoise, and the Delmais. Looking at what he's got, I don't really have a lot of reason not to lead my Tyranitar here. It basically is the main thing preventing Kyurem-Black from just snaring a kill on me turn 1, besides, like, say, Infernape. But Infernape doesn't match up so well against the Choice Scarf Jirachi, for example. Entei, it won't OHKO with a close combat. And of course, Blastoise is a potential lead on his end to prevent Stealth Rocks from my Tyranitar or something like that. So I felt like Tyranitar was overall the best mon to lead off with here. If he does lead something like the Primarina or the Blastoise, I can swap out into either my Rotom or my Trigalgi. And if he doesn't, I could potentially get up Stealth Rocks, or potentially, if he leads Jirachi, I don't really want to risk the Iron Head flinches and stuff like that. So I go right out into my Scizor. I don't think he'd Fire Punch me right off the bat. But let's just get into it here. Does lead with the Jirachi as I lead with the Tyranitar. Obviously, he's got to be worried about like Pursuit or Crunch or something like that, so it's kind of a 50-50 on his end, actually, whether to stay in or not, which is part of the reason I don't want to leave my Tyranitar in here, because he could very well just go for an Iron Head. So I'm going to make the safe play out into my Scizor on the first turn here, as he does go for U-turn. Based on that damage, it is an offensive Jirachi, like I mentioned, probably going to be Choice Scarf if I had to guess, so it can outspeed my Infernape. But getting that chip off early is nice, and goes right out into Entei. Of course, Entei being monster with a Choice Band, Sacred Fire, and stuff like that. So obviously not going to stay in here with my Scizor. It's way too valuable for the late game, and there's no reason to overpredict here. He's probably just going for the Sacred Fire burn on something right off the bat. As he does go for the Sacred Fire and unfortunately misses. It would have been nice to gauge the damage off the Entei. Obviously it's more unfortunate on his end for missing, because he could probably burn my Rotom here and start chipping it down over the course of the match. But obviously, having missed the Sacred Fire, he's got no reason to stay in here. I'm just going to go for the safe Volt Switch. If he does stay in and go for another Sacred Fire, go out into my Dragalge or something like that. But he swaps out into the Dhelmise, which is a free Tyranitar for me. And kind of a situation I found myself in a lot this season is I get in Tyranitar, I'm like, oh, I've got Stealth Rocks, good time to click Stealth Rocks, but Crunch is just so free. I mean, like, nothing really switches in on Crunch very well. In this case, his really only likely switch-ins are Permarina or the Blastoise. Selects the Permarina here. It's going to take a massive amount of damage from this Crunch, but it does reveal that he's HP invested like I was expecting. Obviously not showing an item here, could still be choice specs, and I don't want to mess around with that with my Tyranitar. Potential Stone Edge miss here, even though Stone Edge will knock out the Permarina at this range and I should outspeed it. There's no reason to risk that when I've got a great switch in Dragalge. I don't think he's going for Psychic, obviously, and if he's not choice spec, Psychic's not even going to do that much to me. Throws off the Moonblast, not choice specs damage, so now I'm thinking probably Assault Vest Permarina, which is a little bit of a problem because my Swallow can't just kind of spam Boom Burst all over his face now, because it will take one. But right now seems like a great opportunity to get up my first Toxic Spike as he goes Jirachi. No reason to predict there and hit the Shadow Ball. Really wouldn't have done too much anyways, and I value the Toxic Spike a lot more to wear down everything on his team. I'm a little concerned it's a sub-variant of Kyurem-Black, so the Toxic Spike is really nice for that. Obviously, like my Rotom, for example, wouldn't usually be able to break a sub on a Kyurem-Black, and this Rotom definitely cannot, because I'm not carrying Hex or Shadow Ball or anything like that. But goes out into Jirachi, and I'm going to make the Scout for Fire Punch here. Since I showed Scizor as my initial switch in, I figured if he had it, he'd go for it right now. And it's a good thing I scouted, because he does in fact have the Fire Punch. Not doing too much damage to my Rotom. Obviously snags the burn, which makes up a little bit for him missing the Sacred Fire earlier. Not entirely, but a little bit at least. And I make kind of a misplay here. I should have just gone for Volt Switch again on kind of an obvious Dhelmise switch in. But I went for the Will-O-Wisp. Really, there was no reason for him to leave his Jirachi in there to get burned. I should have just Volt Switched, and I would have had a lot of momentum going out to my Tyranitar. Could have actually set rocks this time, or potentially just gone for another Crunch and 2-hit KO that Primarina. But unfortunately, I lose a lot of momentum here, and I have to Volt Switch out on my turn, and what I'm predicting to be yet another Rapid Spin. Not yet another, a Rapid Spin. Just going to go out into my Scizor to get a little bit of extra chip on this Dhelmise. Dhelmise can't usually touch Scizor that much anyways. And the Rapid Spin plus poison damage has really weakened, the Rocky Helmet plus poison damage has really weakened the Dhelmise at this point in the match, which means it can't come in Rapid Spin later. And I'm just going to U-turn on out. I could have knocked off here, but I felt like U-turn was the more valuable play. Oh no, I did knock off on this one. Well, knockoff also being good there, removing the Flame Plate from Entei, so it was not in fact Choice Band, it was Flame Plate. But I'm just going to go out into my Rotom once again, as he's probably going to fire off another Fire-type move. This time lands the Sacred Fire, obviously no item anymore, not going to do nearly as much to Rotom. But with the burn, I am in range of a potential Stone Edge here. I don't know if he'd be carrying Stone Edge for my team in particular, but I really don't want to risk it here, so I'm just going to hard swap out as he goes Dhelmise and go right into my Dragalge. This is great for me because I'm getting a little bit of Black Sludge recovery on my Dragalge. Obviously, the Dhelmise is now in range of a Sludge Wave or a Dragon Pulse, but what I want to do is actually get my T-Spike back up. Unless he spams Rapid Spin, I'm going to end up with a T-Spike here at the end of the day, because I did expect to be faster than this Dhelmise. Despite not running any speed investment, I didn't think he'd really have any either. He seems to be a more bulky variant to take on my Rotom Wash. He's going to do massive damage to me with the Anchor Shot, but Dragalge's really only purpose in this game was to get up that T-Spike and kind of act as a switch into Primarina. Now that I know that the Primarina is not choice specs, I'm not too concerned about it, and the Toxic Spike is amazing for the rest of his team, bar Jirachi. So I'm perfectly content to trade all that health on my Dragalge here to knock out the Dhelmise. Obviously now we bait in the monster that is Kyurem-Black, because it can definitely knock me out with pretty much any move it has at this range. I'm kind of expecting it to have like Ice Beam, Earth Power, potential HP Fire. Like I mentioned, Substitute could be a little bit of a problem for my team, and the Icium Z, of course, is always a threat. Goes for the Ice Beam here right off the bat, which is great for me because even if this is like a Choice Scarf Kyurem-Black, I just get to freely go into my Infernape here and click Close Combat. Like I mentioned, it has no good switch-ins to Close Combat. The Primarina is chipped enough that Close Combat plus Thunder Punch guaranteed 2-hit KO anyways. Actually, I could probably KO the Primarina with just a plain Thunder Punch at this range. But like I mentioned, no switch-ins for Close Combat. Goes into the Blastoise, and like I mentioned, no switch-ins for Close Combat. This is exactly what happened in a prep match, actually. The Blastoise came out on my Infernape. I actually didn't have a T-Spike up at the time, but the Blastoise came in on the Infernape Close Combat and was just basically blown away. It did like 70 or 80% or whatever, sort of like this one did, and he's just got to sack off his Blastoise. Like, he's got no switch-ins to this Pokemon. Life Orb Kyurem-Black, Life Orb Infernape, just putting in a ton of work this match. still very threatening for the rest of his team. Like, I'm potentially in range of an extreme speed, but like, you can't really risk that because I'm going to knock him out with close combat. So he's got to go Jirachi here. I'm like, okay, this is definitely Choice Scarf Jirachi. Just going to go back out in Scizor again. Don't think he's going to click a Fire Punch on this turn. And even if he does, I'm not too concerned about it because I can go right back into my Infernape and kill something else. But he just goes for the Zen Headbutt, and I do a little bit more Rocky Helmet chip. This is where I know knockoff is not worth the play here. I'm just going to U-turn out on this Entei with my Scizor. I potentially could have roosted there, which might have been the better play, just to make sure I was healthy enough to take hits from like the Kyurem-Black and the Jirachi later in the game, and even a potential hit from Primarina since it's not choice specs. But U-turn is also a pretty solid play there. It can get me out into my Swellow, and something else dies now, unless he goes hard Jirachi, which kind of just resets the situation. Really not too helpful for him. He's just going to sack off the Entei. I think that was his best play. The Extreme Speed obviously doing a lot of damage to Swellow despite it not being choice banned because Swellow's defenses are terrible. But Boom Burst here being really nice. Keeps out the Kyurem-Black, which is basically kind of the goal here, obviously. Is if you can limit the switch-ins of a Kyurem-Black to 1 or 2 a game, you've done your job because Kyurem-Black can get a kill with every move it clicks potentially. So the less it clicks, the better. I do click Boom Burst here. I really have no reason to save the Swellow at this point. He's going to knock me out with the Moonblast. It was, in fact, AV Primarina, so good prep on his end, being able to have something to take hits from that Swellow. Otherwise, it kind of would just run train on the end of his team here, because Jirachi is really not too effective in this match, given the combination of typings that I have sticking around, and of course, the Rocky Helmet on Scizor. Right here, I've got a very free Volt Switch with my Rotom. He's obviously slower than me, and I'm going to Volt Switch out and KO the Primarina. Again, really had no reason to save it there. And once again, I'm just going to keep the Kyurem-Black out. There's no reason for me to let that thing in and try to get a kill on something. Not that he's really matches up too well against my Tyranitar, Infernape, or Scizor, but this kind of absolutely forces his hand into Jirachi by going back out into the Infernape, which, again, I don't think he's just going to Fire Punch my Infernape. I go out into my Scizor on what I'm predicting to be like a U-turn or a Zen Headbutt again, as he just goes for the Zen Headbutt once more. This puts Scizor in an amazing position of just being able to click knockoff here. If he goes Kyurem-Black, I get its item or find out if it's Z move, and I'll kill it with a Bullet Punch on the following turn. If he stays in with Jirachi, I knock that thing out and basically win the game. Because Kyurem-Black, even if his Choice Scarf at this point, wouldn't have been able to lock itself into one move to beat me. He does reveal to be the Icium Z on the Kyurem-Black, but like I mentioned, he's in range of a Bullet Punch after that poison damage, and I'm just going to go for it. If he goes back into Jirachi, again, he's just kind of resetting the situation, and it still doesn't have the right move to lock into to beat the rest of my team. So knocking out the Kyurem-Black there, really nice for me. Scizor putting in a tremendous amount of damage this game. Goes back out into the Jirachi. I don't think he's going to click Fire Punch because he literally can't win if he clicks Fire Punch. So I'm thinking he'll probably just go for Iron Head. Technically, this Jirachi is such a monster, it can technically still win the game here if I make some misplays. So I'm going to try to preserve the 4-0 here with the differential, stay in with my Scizor, go for a knockoff, and I do break through the flinch here and KO that Jirachi. If I didn't, I'd probably have to do some fancy switching around, get my Berry procced on Rotom, see if he flinches that down, get the Infernape in, like do some kind of weird switching. Worst case scenario, I could always just Bullet Punch the Jirachi and it would kill itself on my Rocky Helmet. But I didn't have to worry about any of that because I did break through the flinch and KO the Jirachi with the knockoff. So it's a GG to Swede there. Unfortunately for Swede, he's sitting at 1-3 now, I believe. I don't think he's played like a 1-3 team. I think he's played a lot better than that. He had some unfortunate luck in a couple of his earlier weeks. I think you kind of mentioned this week was the first week where he kind of deserved the loss, and in that I felt like I brought a really good team and I played really well this match. Like I mentioned during the game, there's a couple places here and there I could have done a little better. Like I could have roosted instead of clicking U-turn that one time with Scizor, but all in all, I'm really happy with how I played the match, and I think I brought kind of the perfect counter to the team that he could have brought. The T-Spikes were super valuable from Dragalge this match. Basically, the two newcomers here, Dragalge and Swellow, doing a pretty good job this match. Swellow being able to knock out that Entei and put in some big damage on the Primarina, and Dragalge with the T-Spike just continuously wearing down his Rapid Spinner and Delmise and whittling down his team as a whole. Scizor really was the MVP this match, taking all those hits from Jirachi. Basically, the Jirachi couldn't break through my team. Like, no matter what set of Jirachi he brought, he really didn't have the coverage to beat my team. If he didn't bring a Choice Scarf Jirachi, that's another thing, letting my Iron Fist Life Orb Infernape come in and click Fire Punch, which he doesn't switch in too well, because Fire Punch into close combat should knock out that Entei with the T-Spike up. really, he didn't have good switch-ins for the Infernape, but didn't get to come in all that much just because I kind of kept the Kyurem-Black out, which was the plan coming into the match. Basically, if there's ever a free turn, you don't let Kyurem-Black in. Like, that's the easiest decision in the world. So the free turns being, in this case, the lead matchup, and I think a couple times I pivoted and KO'd something, or like pivoted and KO'd something on the following turn, like Volt switching out on the Primarina killed it, U-turning on the Entei into Swellow. Like, things that would just keep the Kyurem-Black out of my face were things that I wanted to do this match, and I think I did that pretty well. But again, GG to Swede. Hopefully you can kind of turn the season around here. I think you got a really threatening team. It's actually a team very similar to something I drafted in another league. My first season playing league, actually, I drafted Webs plus Kyurem-Black, Primarina, and I did have Jirachi on that team for a brief stint until it got replaced with Bronzong. But I really like the team he's got going. I think it's extremely threatening. Obviously, crazy wall breakers like Entei, Nidoking, Kyurem-Black, like even Mega Blastoise is really hard to switch into, Primarina. So really, really threatening team on that end. Interested to see if he can turn it around and make playoffs here. I think he's definitely got the squad and the talent to do it. And it'd be cool if we could get a rematch, because I had a lot of fun playing this match. I really like kind of facing teams like this with the team that I've got. The nice kind of bulky offense kind of showing itself in this match. Maybe more of a bulky balance this game. Basically just having really good switch-ins for everything he brought. But that's about it from me, guys. Once again, shoutouts to Glitch X City for the music. Link is in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.